I'm doing my legs for some reason and nobody can even see that.
Brilliant.
For me, a winning combination of streaming series that rarely ever fails is that it needs to be German, should be a dark comedy or drama, and be available to binge a season all at once. Murder Mindfully checks all those boxes. But is it a winner? A lawyer attends a mindfulness retreat to restore work-life balance, but unexpectedly becomes a murderer and mastermind for the mob.
So as always, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're going to start with the good. So right off the bat, the acting here is fantastic. Murder Mindfully introduces us to some standout performances. The lead actor is Tom Schelling. I don't know how I got Schelling. Schelling, who plays Bjorn Damel. Bjorn?
Bjorn.
Do you say the
Bjorn?
Bjorn?
Bjorn.
I'm doing well with the name today. He plays a lawyer who everybody in his life is walking over him. There's an ultimatum sort of made by his wife who says, you need to go and learn this mindfulness by this guy, guru type person. Now, our actor here is fantastically done, because we start with him in a place where his life is sort of a mess. And then as he learns what mindfulness is, he implements each of these things wonderfully, and we get to be on that journey with him.
Tom Schelling was awesome. I liked how he made his character to be unassuming, nonchalant. I mean, just, it was crazy at how likable this guy is. I mean, he, like you said, he's walked all over.
Yeah.
And we get to watch him build in his confidence as things happen to him, and he exploits situations that he finds himself in. Also, for me, I thought it was funny because he looked like a German version of a cross between Zach Braff and Martin Henderson from Virgin River. So
I see that.
Then also the series, the way this is told, not only just because it's a German series, but how it's executed, it reminded me a lot of How to Sell Drugs Online Fast. The show is self-aware. It is quick-witted. It breaks the fourth wall
Many times, which is so cool and well done, I think.
Yeah, it's not like the Deadpool gimmick. This is much more subtle and used sparingly.
It's almost like he's talking to himself still, even when he's breaking the fourth wall. It's like he's laughing at himself at the bizarre situation he's found himself in.
You know, I often say this for shows that are kind of like this, where we find a character who gets themselves into situations. And there's a book called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And basically what happens, well, if you give a mouse a cookie, then he's going to want a glass of milk. And if he wants a glass of milk, then he's going to And that's what happens within this story. And sometimes that could sound like that becomes annoying. And like, ugh, that's just, you know, we've seen this all before. But the way that he encounters difficulties, all of the complications, they stack upon each other. And then how he uses the mindfulness techniques to work through those. See, I found myself actually kind of using these as he used them. It was weird. It was like almost like a self-help thing wrapped in a dark comedy about murder.
Yep. It is exactly that. The techniques that he's using are real mindful techniques, because some of them we've heard or seen memes of, like people talking to you about how to use breathing or how to diffuse a situation. All of those are real techniques, making this somewhat grounded. However, there are storylines that this series does well into helping us like him as a character.
Oh, yeah.
For example, there's an ongoing storyline with his family. His wife plays the wife. We don't see too much of her, but mostly it's the little bits that we get with him and his daughter that really cement him as the father figure, and we wanting him to be a better father.
Yes.
This writing helps, I guess, back the idea that he can be a good guy, that he can be a father. Even when he's having to kill someone to save that idea, you're still rooting for him. Committing atrocities, you're still rooting for him, because at the end of the day, you want him to succeed. You want family to stick together. If you have a heart, that, you know, the happy ending. Yeah,
it really is, which in a very twisted way.
There are also some side characters that I thought were excellent. There's a particular henchman that gets, I guess he's along for the ride He doesn't know that he's part of it along for the ride. He just kind of gets swept up into the momentum of the craziness that's unfolding. He's another character that he might be a bad guy, but you instantly are rooting for.
Oh my gosh, Sasha is awesome. He's one of these that there are little bits of growth that we learn throughout development. You know, the character is unveiled in a way that really, it doesn't just say, here it is. And it also doesn't say it like, here it is. It's just, it shows us little bits here and there, and it absolutely changes a perspective from this dude who was the henchman. I mean, he's the muscle.
The enforcer, yeah.
Yeah.
When he walks into a room, you know he's the muscle.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with it because he's super quiet and he just takes care of things.
Yeah.
You know, and so bad things will happen to you if you have to mess with Sasha. Yeah. But there's a whole other side to him that we get to witness. And it is so great to just see him do that and how that influences Bjorn.
Yeah.
Also, and how those two interact together, I think, also.
Yeah, so the development of those characters really cements home whose team you're rooting for.
Yeah.
But then, at the same time, there are bad guys that you love to hate, that you want to die. And it does that so wonderfully. From the secretary, who's just a douche. I didn't necessarily want her to die, but she was really annoying.
Yes.
To the white middle-aged guys that run the firm, those guys suck. To basically the mob bosses, which are generic in being mob bosses bad guys.
Yes.
Like the caricatures that they're playing, but also you love to hate them. And you kind of need those guys in this story so that you can be rooting for your good guy or your anti-hero.
Yeah.
And they do that wonderfully here.
You had mentioned earlier, I think, like Ozark and some other shows. And to me, this really reminded me a lot of both Lilyhammer and Ozark.
Oh, yeah.
With having a much more likable bad guy character in the lead of Lilyhammer and much less dark
than Ozark.
Even though a lot of the storylines feel similar to Ozark.
Oh, for sure.
You know.
Which is why I mentioned Sweet Pea, because that's definitely a dark horror comedy. And the comedy is the situation that our character finds themselves in, which this is definitely a lot of as well. I would say that the filming this is almost counter what's going on screen. There's a lot of light shots, beautifully lit, wonderfully daytime, but what's occurring is dark as heck, which in itself is funny. The dialogue here is sharp and really helps with that, which again is an oxymoron for some of the non-expositional moments that we get with our characters, like you were mentioning before. It doesn't dump exposition. It is explained through little bits of information. I would have liked some more on some of the side characters.
And I thought, like, going to exactly what you're talking about, the comedy is, it's dark, but it's on point. I mean, and it's always going back, which I appreciate the consistency of this, of Bjorn and his mindfulness training, so that we're not shown, which I'm very thankful for, we're not shown all of his training all at once when he meets with the guru dude.
Because that would be dull as heck.
Oh my gosh. Well, and then to revisit it every single time he does that would just be like, oh, shoot me in the head now.
Yeah, we don't want that.
And so Sasha would come over and take care of that. But we get little bits here and there when he first meets his therapist guru guy. So we get an understanding of what's going to happen, but then it's revealed slowly. And so it works itself naturally into the storytelling.
Yeah.
And it never feels like it's forced on us. It literally feels like, well, this is, okay, so he's recalling, this is the first time we're seeing it. And we get to see how it works for him. And then I find myself breathing as well. There's some creative filmmaking within this, but there was one that really stood out to me, one sequence where Bjorn is having a brainstorming session. The way they execute this, as he, in his mind, is walking through the forest, as he encounters different ideas and he's working through this, there were moments that were laugh out loud funny. They were very witty also, and it was just a smart bit of storytelling there.
So brave, and I don't know that I've seen it before done quite like that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Really creative. So, in talking about the good and bad and ugly, we have to get to the bad, unfortunately. And I would say my major complaint for the bad, basically, is that it's there's too little. It's 8 episodes and they're about 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
you get through it really quickly, which is, again, kind of just another tick in the good because I wanted more of it. And when I talked about some of those characters, we know next to nothing about most of the characters except for
Yeah.
our main family, because that's what we focus on. And that's okay, especially as we have such time frames. But I would have liked to know a little bit more about some of those side characters. Even Sasha would have been great to know a bit more about. Yeah.
I felt that kind of with the whole setup of if you give a mouse a cookie, that also creates a repetitious type of problem, introduction, resolution
All right,
type
yeah.
of thing. You know,
Yeah, I can see that.
And so the issues are different. All the situations are different. The resolutions are also different. But it's still, you kind of know that, okay, in this episode, Bjorn is going to come up against some kind of complication. He's going to have to come up with some sort of scheme or something to get out of that or to find the resolution for it. And then we're going to revisit this again. If you're binging it, which was awesome as a binge, you can notice some of that a little bit. And I think that while it didn't hugely bother me, it was noticeable.
Okay. Now moving on to the ugly. What is the theme of the series? If it's how to be a serial killer and a mob boss, they've completed their job. If it's how to deceive your loved ones, tick, they've done that. If it's how to manipulate everyone in your life, tick. I enjoyed it, but I can't help but feel the series' message, mindfulness, gets lost in the stabby things.
Oh, I can see how they contradict. For me, though, that wasn't ugly. That worked really well
It
because,
just got me thinking at the end. I was like, wait a minute.
yeah, how better to find your zen than to eliminate your problems, right? And he was eliminating his problems
What are you guys saying here?
and bettering himself as it went along. You know, I'm sure that's not a healthy way of taking care of your
not,
problems.
but it's wonderful to watch.
Yeah, wildly entertaining. So overall, Murder Mindfully is a quick-witted and twisted dark comedy that uses circumstantial conveniences to enable the anti-hero to succeed in enjoyable ways. Tom Schilling is a charismatic lead, playing up his character's charm and awareness to exploit the unbelievable situations he finds himself in, all while maintaining the zen the series promised. The pacing moves us quickly through the story, and despite some elements becoming repetitive, the tight storytelling builds to an exciting climax that provides a satisfying payoff and doesn't leave audiences dangling. There is a little bit of sex and nudity, a ton of profanity, and some incredibly brutal violence. I give Murder Mindfully 4.5 out of 5 couches. So do you have a way to find your zen? I mean, the series gives us some great ways to achieve peace, but I would love to hear any suggestions that work for you in the comments below. Because as the great Lloyd Braun said, serenity now, insanity later. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is my friend Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday. Thanks for couching with us.